I've just touched a little bit on sponsorship, but a bloke what knows a whole lot more about this is our first keynote, Julian Moore. He's come all the way from Brisbane to be with us. Well, he's come all the way from UK, but via Brisbane. He's an ex-POM, but he's a recovering POM, basically. Now based in Brisbane, and he is Australasia's foremost non-profit sponsorship practitioner, specializing in charities, associations, and non-profits. So in other words, he is the right bloke for the job at hand today, right? He specializes in training, motivating, and upskilling boards and staff to improve sponsorship performance. And he's gone into places where they couldn't even spell the word, and he's left them in pretty good shape. So you're going to be in good hands, ladies and gentlemen. He's taken the longest domestic flight in Australia, Brisbane to Perth, to be with us today. He's with us until tomorrow afternoon. He's going to do a workshop after morning tea. He is here to be used within reason. Please welcome Julian Moore.
Oh my God, that's probably the best intro I've ever had, I think. And when it comes to the bios, you can always tell who wrote the bio in the office. This one, it was my wife. That's probably why I thought, wow, she's made me sound so much better than I truly am. So you've got your priorities straight first thing. Vegetation comes first, yoga comes second, then partying, and then it's funding. So I thought your priorities were awesome. We've got two parts to today. We've got the exposing the secrets, the confessions this morning, and then this afternoon we've got the crash course into everything you need to know. So let's jump straight into it. The one thing I'm always asked, no matter where I am, is why? Why should we sponsor you? What's it for? And when I first got to Australia, I asked the very same thing in the federal government. I was Tony Blair's not-for-profit policy advisor in the UK. And in there, they had a peak body where you could go and they would tell you exactly how many authorities there were, how many associations, how many charities, how many natural resource organisations, how many of everything. I got here and I got told, we don't know. Now, I went to the federal in Canberra and said, well, where's your not-for-profit office? It sits within the office of the Prime Minister. So I went and saw the three people there who are all on sort of 200-300 grand a year and said, well, how many are there? Well, we were hoping you would tell us. And that was the response I got. So immediately we did, well, let's get some bloody research done and find out what's going on. And this is what it turned up. With the 600,000 organisations, 59,000 economically viable. Of those 59,000, they're the ones who employ people. 43 billion contribution to the GDP. More importantly, 4.6 million people engaged directly. So when any sponsor ever goes to me, well, what can you offer? I say, well, if you want to access these people, you've got to remember they're a bigger part of an organisation. And whenever it comes to NRM, they go, so what do you do? Well, that's soil stuff, that's us. You know, the water, yeah, that's us too. Those endangered animals, yeah, you know. Now, are you getting the clue? It's us. So when I was told that I was coming here, the morning before, I was actually in Cairns with Winchester Guns, who have just sponsored the Cape York Sustainable Futures at the top end there, because now Winchester are environmentally friendly for the very first time. So they are a weapon of the environmentalists these days. They have 1 million pigs on Cape York. 9,000 people, but 1 million pigs. The biggest issue to turtles on Cape York are pigs. So now we have Bell helicopters and Winchester Guns who have developed a gun called the Pig Buster. It's awesome, I've got to tell you. I took these photos, I tweeted them out, and now I look cool because I've got this gun I don't know how to use. But we've got Bell helicopters, 4 helicopters, we've got all the shooters, we've got 9 guns going through, and they're going to go, it's going to look like something out of, you know, Apocalypse Now or Vietnam coming up. They're going to be flying around shooting these bloody things. So when I'm asked about sponsorship, it's very straightforward. What's in it for them? And that's what we're going to go through. So we really do have a how-to guide this afternoon. But before that, I thought I would share a few of the stories and secrets on how to get there in the first place. And so, what's the state of the economy? You know, what's it meant? What's the GFC, or I call it CFU, that's complete fuck up, done to the NFP partnership industry? What it's done is simply it's muddied the waters. When you send a proposal out to an organisation now, if you send it out to John Deere, Massey Ferguson, New Holland, Still, any of these organisations that should be getting behind you, they're receiving about 60 a week. Now, they don't employ a single person to deal with partnerships. He got sacked about a year and a half ago, and now it's all done from the States. And this is John Deere. So they're getting 60 proposals a week come in, every week, and they all look the same. They're all stapled in the top right-hand corner, and they all say our organisation and your organisation, partnership or sponsorship, and then they all have gold, silver, bronze, and now they all get sent off to the States to be evaluated. They evaluate them really basically. They go, that's interesting, that's not, that's not, that's not. You know when it's not interesting, you get this letter back. This basically is the letter, I've not read your proposal because it didn't look very good on the front cover. And it says, Dear Julian, thank you so much for sending through your proposal for partnership with your organisation. It's with I would say heavy heart, but now I'm being too nice to them. But what they say is, unfortunately, at the moment, we've allocated our funds elsewhere. Did you know that Sony or Massey Ferguson support children with bleeding hearts? And did you know we support these centres and this centre? And we've been doing this for many years. We wish you all the best in your endeavours. And then it's signed, and then there's no signature at the bottom. Because if you have a signature strip, then you've got their email and their telephone number. So when you get this letter, it basically means they've not read anything. And I have to prove this to all my clients. So when we phone them up and go, thanks very much for your response, can I ask which part of it you didn't enjoy? Or which part of it wasn't right for you? And they go, all of it. They have no clue, they've not read it. So because they're getting 60, how do we get over that? Well, let me break down some of the secrets of just how we've been doing it lately. So I was called in by Australia's zoo. It was rather than Australia's zoo, it was Adelaide Zoo. And they wanted to get giant pandas. And they said to me, look, we've been trying now for 4 years to get giant pandas. And over 4 years, we've raised $440,000. And I've gone, oh, well, congratulations, it's Adelaide. You know, 440,000, you've done well. And they said, but we need 55 million. So I took a seat and recovered. Strong coffee helped at that point. And said, well, what have you done? And they've gone to the local Westpac, they've gone to the local Audi dealership, they've gone to the local ones, and they've got giant pandas coming. So they called me in, and we changed this around a bit. What we did is I called every news crew, every TV morning show, every radio station, and offered them all exclusivity, a different type. Said, okay, Grant Denyer, you can come and stroke the panda's hands when it's here, and you know, whatever Today Show weather girl is there, she can come the day after and see Fooni, because we've got 2. So they agreed. Then we wrote the proposal, and we stuck this on the front. Now, this was going out to media types. So we could now say, look, we've got the media from China, we've got the media from Australia, and we've got the world's media's eyes upon us. We've got all these exclusivities tied up with Channel 7, Channel 9, and all the radio stations. So any involvement you may have with us is going to return $120 million. So with that, within 3 days, we got 34.7 million. So after 4 years of 440, we stuck a big giant panda on the front of it, made it look cute and cuddly, and sent it to different people and told them a different story. Nothing else changed. You see, pandas have this wonderful thing. You get gifted pandas. They give you a panda, and in return you have to gift them $10 million. You can't actually buy them. It's a $10 million donation. Then on top of this, when you've got 2 of them, you need a habitat. Then you need to grow bamboo. Now, pandas want to be extinct. I'm convinced of it. They are trying their darndest to be extinct. So whenever they mate, it's 1 day a year. Now, these things only move about 500 meters a day, so if they're further apart than that the day before, it's not happening. Then what they've got is they only eat 2-year-old saplings of bamboo. So now we have to purchase 40 acres to grow 4 different varieties of bamboo, just so then the 2-year-old saplings are placed in front of them, they can go through, eat these ones, the ones they've discarded, they'll never go to again. There's not enough minerals in those bamboo to actually get them active. So actually what they're trying to do is really, really make life difficult for themselves. Now, when we found this out, the first thing we did is we aligned all kinds of companies with them. We aligned Westpac, but then we aligned Pfizer because of Viagra. So now, the Adelaide Zoo pandas are sponsored by Viagra. Now, we are going to go through what should be sponsored and what shouldn't be. Can I just say, don't get sponsored by Viagra. It may be right for pandas and it's right for a certain element of the thing, but realistically, that's nearly as bad as McDonald's sponsoring the Olympics. You know, the 100-meter sprint, at the end you win a Big Mac or something. So what about, that's okay for national. What about for a smaller organisation? What about if you're going for a state-based one? So we've got the Australian College of Midwives came to me and they said, we've never had sponsorship before. And now this is the most militant group of people I have ever met in my life. So I've said, okay, so what are we going to do? How about we go to Tommy TP? How about we go to pacifiers? How about we go to bottles? They nearly crucified me. You can only have breast is best. There is no bottle feeding. There are no pacifiers. None of these are allowed. And I'm going, oh, bloody hell, what am I going to do? Because midwives don't buy anything. So, and they don't purchase anything. So where are we going to do this? Well, actually, we found out what happens is midwives, we spun the whole thing. We turned it into midwives guiding women at the most vulnerable times of their lives. When you've had a baby, as you'll know very recently, the first thing what tends to happen is ladies ask, now what? Well, how do I feed them? How do I do this? How do I do that? So we got Johnson & Johnson's involved because it turns out once you use a wet wipe brand, you tend to be very, very loyal. And you use those wet wipes forevermore because you don't want a different reaction on baby's bum. So we got J&J involved. Then we got Bugaboo pushchairs. Then we got car seats. It's all about what the new mum was buying, not what the midwife was buying, and it was all about how they engaged with their audience. So when we had this long list of all these organisations, we now wondered who they were. So we went through, we found Britax, we found Bugaboo, we found J&J. They were all being sent to brand directors because we don't send it to sponsorship managers. Within the company, they're the people who spend the money. The brand director is the one who actually has the checkbook. When we looked at them, they were 50-year-old men. Now, they were all 50-year-old white males. So we immediately knew that they don't understand what pregnant women go through. So what we did is, this is the front cover. If you look at her chin, it's not normal. We've airbrushed it. We've taken away her water retention. If you can see on her shoulders, she's got strap lines now. So she has a tan. Yeah, pregnant women tend not to lay in the sun, I've got to tell you. And now you see on her belly, she actually has this beautiful belly. Yeah, all the veins have gone, stretch marks have gone. We airbrushed all those as well. Because this is about whether it's going to get their attention. When it landed on their desk, they picked it up and read it. The front page is now the most important page of the document. In that document, if it says for every dollar you spend, I'm going to give you $10 million tomorrow, and they don't read it, it's pointless in making the offer. The front page simply means that they're going to pick it up and read this thing. So we needed 50-year-old white men to actually read this, and this is what got their attention. Within 6 weeks, we had $480,000, and they'd never had sponsorship in their lives. So it was a very straightforward ask, but it had to be tailored to old white men. I say old now. I've got Jerry looking at me going, he's not old. So now, what about if it's a smaller group entirely? Well, what about if you're going to a different demographic? This is Playgroup Queensland. We're going out now to toy manufacturers. We're going out to all these different things. Turns out in Queensland, there's 17,000 families who come together at the Playgroup each week. Now, when you have 17,000 new mums coming to Playgroup, how else are you going to get hold of 17,000 new mums? It's just a state-based organisation that has its playgroups. So again, what we had to do is work out who we're going to. Now, this way, we were actually going all the way to plays. It was Fisher-Price, it was Mattel, it was all these different toy manufacturers, because they were the ones who wanted the new mums to buy their stuff. So this way, we worked out who was going to. This is to go to a 20 to 30-year-old female. Because when it landed on their desk, they opened it. This is the techniques we're using now. It's simply about getting noticed amongst all the muddied waters that are out there. And when you actually understand who you're sending it to, you can understand what they're going to find attractive. Because that's what the front cover does. It's just so they read it. If you have become just one of the other also-rans, you're not going to get read, and you'll get that beautiful letter back that we've all seen. And so what do your partnership proposals include? You need the cover page, you need the listing. This is what we're going to go through this afternoon in much greater detail, a huge amount of detail. We're going to go through page by page, and then we're going to go through who's sponsoring, who isn't, and what they want. So by the end of today, I'm hoping not only will you have an idea of how to put your proposal together, but you'll also work out who wants it and what they want. So tomorrow, not tomorrow, the day after, you can write one of these yourself. Now, what I'm also going to do is give a template to Sarah so she can send it through to you. Please don't use the words in the template. Others have done this and they've phoned you up and gone, we've seen this before. So, but it will give you a nice idea of the guidelines and pricing and valuations and so forth. So when on the trends, we're seeing a whole change going on. First of all, how many of you have to actually tell your partners what NRM is? You know, I'm the same. I go back, who have you worked with this week? I've been in the NRM region. And which one? Oh, well, we're down on the West Coast. And what are you doing there? And what is NRM? That's all I get. But NRM this year, just myself with Tasmania and a few others and some of the other NRM regions, we've raised, I think, about $110 million in sponsorship. I mean, this year we'll raise about $340 million in sponsorship. And NRM's getting about 100 odd. It's really exciting. It's really kind of the moment. Corporates find you hugely sexy and attractive. Except the first thing we have to do is explain to the corporates who don't know what NRM is, what NRM is. So educating the corporate has become pretty much everything. Sponsorship is now more about educating than anything else. Because what we've got to do is we've got to take them from NRM is an acronym developed by government. It's not really exciting. So we've got to educate the corporate into what you're doing. We've got to let them know what the outcomes are, how many people you get involved, how they get involved, and what they do. And when they hear that, that's what they get excited about. Then we've got to keep in mind live face-to-face. 47% of all corporate partnerships are based on live face-to-face engagement. That's either with you, the people you engage with, or at an event like this. Because they've realised that we don't tell their story very well. So what they want to do is get people to come in and actually meet the audience, get involved, and well, not only get involved, but really get immersed within the industry. Because that's the way, when it comes to buying cycles, people go, you know, I'm thinking about a new ute, and suddenly there's Tony there who's been working with us for a while. I'll go see him because he's a Toyota guy. That's the way they're working. It's about immersion within an industry. Social media in your proposal, if you don't have it, get it. Already this year, we're now seeing that if you don't have social media, they're not considering an annual partnership. Social media is becoming one of the largest sectors within sponsorship. If you've got over 40,000 Twitter followers, you can make $5,000 a month just by tweeting. And not only this, if they have a new thing that they want to put out to a community, they do it through social media. It's the fastest access. Now, 2012, we saw that it was the year of the healthy, active lifestyle. Simply, I'm trying to show how fickle partnerships are. When we had Jessica sail in, suddenly it was all about yachting and boating, and suddenly it was Four Winds and Riviera sponsoring. And then, of course, it was the Olympics, so everything was about that healthy, active. This year, we've seen it become about family. Everyone wants access to women. If you've got predominantly women, females, they're considered the head of the household. They're the ones people want to get hold of. They're so bloody hard to get hold of. They go off, you have children, and then suddenly you hibernate for a year, and we don't know how to get hold of you again. It's not till you come back to the workforce can we speak to you. So everyone's looking to get hold of women. Guys, quite honestly, you're not that valuable. I hate to tell you, it's a very cutthroat thing, these partnerships. But exclusivity, it's as if everyone's become part of the finance or the banking industry. You know, they have that single child syndrome. They don't play well with others. They all want exclusivity now. And that's okay, because what we can do is industry exclusivity. Industry exclusivity is where, when we offer them an industry exclusivity, we'll only have one bank. But we'll still have motor vehicles, we'll still have clothing manufacturers, we'll still have machinery. We'll only have one high street bank, but what about a self-managed superannuation side of things? What about a credit card company? Just because they're banking services. So we have to designate which industry within them you're offering exclusivity. And for 2014, we're already seeing it switch into it. It's about growth. Every time we get engaged now, it's what's in it for us. That's the first question that comes across. What's in it for us? How can we grow our market penetration, or how can we access this new market profitably? They're the questions we're getting asked. It's going to be almost exclusively about growth next year. The markets are becoming much more buoyant. We're seeing much more spent this year. And as we run into the end of the year, we're now seeing those phone calls that I haven't had for a few years where they're going, we've got this budget, we need to spend it before the end of the year. It's very reassuring when we see this done. So what can be sponsored? You know, almost anything can be sponsored. Not everything should be. This always reminds me of the Viagra. Simply because I started off with events, and we were setting up these different events for the pharmaceutical sector. And we would run the clinical drug trials. Now, of those clinical drug trials, the first one I ever got called in to do was actually data capture. So we'd have an event like this right across each major capital city in Europe. And all the doctors would fly in and report back on their findings from all these different clinical drug trials. Now, what they would then do is report back to how the test subjects are going. Now, this first one we did was Viagra. This is back when Viagra was about erectile dysfunction and not a lifestyle drug as it is now. But what they did is we got a phone call going, stop whatever you're doing now, because we've been licensed. We want you to fly across to New York, see the launch, and then we want you to run those launches in every city across there. So no more clinical drug trials. And I've gone, awesome, I'm going shopping at Macy's. So they flew us in, and then we got greeted by the Smurfs. These were the ladies who were employed to dress you as a Smurf, because Viagra is a blue diamond tablet. So when you land in New York, you come off the plane, and these ladies are dressed in blue jackets, blue caps, blue ties, and then they hand you your blue jacket, your blue cap, and your blue tie, and then you're taken straight to an auditorium. And when we're in this auditorium, I'm surrounded by 5,000 women and me. Because what the newspapers and the movies don't tell you are that when Viagra was first launched, only women were allowed to sell it in the States. Men weren't allowed to, because when they did all the tests and focus groups, the guys couldn't stop giggling. So they got the women to actually go out and sell all this. Now, they'd gone away for 3 weeks to a highly intensive, education on erectile dysfunction. And the first day they get let free, they go to an auditorium to see the launch, and one guy walks in, me. Can you imagine the heckling I got shouted across from me? It was not good. I heard everything from, if you don't swallow it correctly, do you get a stiff neck? To, if the criminals take it, does that make him a hardened criminal? And then suddenly, thank God, the lights went down. The music started, and it was Tina Turner, of course, Simply the Best, because the Americans, they're not that original. So Simply the Best kicks off, the lights go down, the smoke comes out, and the lights start banking like this, huge, giant white lights. And I'm going, this is great. Like, who's coming out? And it was the CEO of Pfizer, so not that exciting. But he walks up to the lectern, and it was odd. They're good, aren't they? So I think I've missed something. And like, what's going on? He goes, I had to have them. When I saw them, I had to have them. Now, crazy applause and laughter is going on in the whole auditorium. I'm the only friggin' moron sat at the front going, what's going on? When you tweaked the cap, it stood up and said Viagra. When you tweaked the tie, it stood up and said Viagra. And the worst bloody thing, these door keys for your hotel rooms now, you never actually get a key anymore. It's got backwards writing on it. And as you put it in the door, it said Viagra, still stiff on the way out. So I took a photo of it, put it on my website on what should not be sponsored, because it was the worst event I've ever been to. I've seen they put on the glasses. On the bottom of the glasses, they put transparent stickers with the blue-shaped, life-size, actual size of the tablet. So every time I've gone to pick up any water at the event, I think someone spiked my bloody drink. So I've not drank for all day. I was so bloody dehydrated by the end of it. So what it does is it reminds us of making sure that your sponsor is suitable for your organization. Because this just isn't suitable for most. You've got to make sure sponsorship is such a double-edged sword. You've got to make sure you choose the right organization to be involved with you. This year, we'll have done 2,100, and I should know off the top of my head, but I don't, let's say 2,100 sponsorship partnerships this year. Now, I could have easily done 4,000 if I was willing to go to British American Tobacco, McDonald's, booze. If you go to the beer companies, these are the companies that would sponsor anyone who would have them. I've had the Lung Foundation of Australia turn down $10 million this year because it was from British American Tobacco. But British American, so here's an ethical question. British American Tobacco come to you as the Lung Foundation and say, what's your mission statement? We're here to find the cure. Here's $10 million towards finding the cure. And you can't take it. How about diabetes coming up and going, Coca-Cola want to sponsor us. We've had the food eating disorders, McDonald's. These things you never hear in sponsorship. When Tiger Woods was going around and getting to know lots of ladies, he in the news, when he got caught, all you ever hear is he lost $40 million worth of sponsorship. What you don't hear is the companies that sent him letters requesting that he continues doing what he's doing, and they will replace that $40 million. There are sponsors out there who make a lot of money from bad behavior. So what we have to do is work out what we're doing well and what we can offer people for it. Because when we're doing sponsorship, there needs to be, I always call it a 3 wins. We've got to win. They've got to pay us for it. They've got to win. There's got to be a return on investment for them. And there's got to be whatever that return is. But the people we engage with also have to win. That's the difference. We're not a corporate. We don't just have 2 people. We've got 3 wins. And those 3 have to be in place to make it sustainable. Now I found my clicker again. We can move on. So I thought I'd give you an idea of the global sports. Now, the not-for-profit and NRM side of things is 10% of this. But if you see, the GFC slowed it. It did nothing else. And not only, when you look at 2014, at 45.56 billion. And this is just sports. And the thing I hate about sports is winning teams get sponsorship. And the way they actually sell this is, you want to be part of our winning team. So what do they offer? Television. So we get TV rights. Yeah, a lot of people are going to see Nike. Okay, so hands up who's never heard of Nike. So exposure? What the bloody hell do they need exposure for? Everyone knows them. Okay, so now we've got Nike, and they've been offered a huge amount of exposure on TV for millions for one team. And the people who don't support that team are no longer predisposed to buy Nike anymore. So now, what else are we going to offer them? Our brand loyalty. Really, you're going to differentiate? If you buy Nike already, why are you going to do this? Sports sponsorship is the biggest screw I've ever seen in my life. I don't understand why the companies spend their money on it. I just don't. There's no one sporting company or organization, no matter what team it is, that has more supporters than the rest of the teams out there combined. It seems odd to go there. The great thing about the NRMs are you have a huge amount to offer. You communicate with your stakeholders almost on a weekly basis or a monthly basis. You communicate with them by email, live face-to-face, hard copies, annual reports. You've got 1,000 options. We save endangered animals. Not just 1 or 2, and they're not just snakes and dangerous elephants. And we've also got the cute and cuddlies they can get behind. When I got called in by Southeast Queensland catchments, they had the bristlebird. I have no clue what it looks like. I'm kind of not into that thing. But we just got a toilet brush manufacturer that has a bristlebird. Now the bristle brush is sponsored with the bristlebird. Guess what that means? They can't afford for this to fail. Because if that bristlebird fails, it's seen as their bristle brush would fail. Endangered animals are one of my most favourite things because they're the most straightforward to get partners for. If you have the black glossy, go to Dulux. Because they have a paint called black glossy. No one's ever done this. When you're looking at soil erosion, why aren't we going to see people like West Farmers who own Bunnings, who own Coles, who own all these different things? because they're the ones that we should be speaking to. And when we're talking about broad-scale farming and agriculture, you need to know things like that John Deere sold much less farming equipment last year, but they had a 1,500% growth in ride-on lawnmowers. Because the peri-urbans all have their 4 to 20 acres, and now they've got their new shed and new dam, they need a tractor. And I want to look like I'm a farmer, so I've got a green one. But on that green one, it has to have the air-conditioned stubby cooler, because that's the cool one. So they're 1,500% growth in ride-on lawnmowers. So anyone here who's engaging with those new peri-urbans, anyone here who's talking about putting fencing around corridors, anyone here is talking about any of these revegetation corridors at the moment and putting fencing up, these are the companies who want to get hold of you. And that's what we're going to go through this afternoon, how to make that proposal work. But when I say that sponsorship's a two-edged sword, choose carefully. Because if you get it wrong, everyone knows. You know, the Doritos Cool Ranch Church of God, you know, that did not work for them, I've got to tell you. The football club that got sponsored by Pooh, you know, the supporters got known as the Little Sheds. So then we had, what my favourite one is the Aunt Annie's. This is for the American Society of Association Executives. They took on what's the equivalent of a bakery. It's a local bakery. And then suddenly, all these were beside the roadways, the highways, right across the country. The American Society of Association Executives, sponsored by giant cocks. And not only that, they are Jewish ones and suntans. So it's always a challenge if you've signed a 3-year contract with these organisations and then they've gone out and done this. My favourite one by all means though is the Olympics. Everyone gets me in to ask, well, the Olympics, why did they take Rio Tinto? Why did they take McDonald's? Why did they take all these people that have no interest in healthy, active lifestyles? It's quite simple. England was bankrupt and they accepted the money. It was the worst form of sponsorship I think I've seen for quite some time. And what they did was they essentially just went through anyone who would pay them that income. In the 70s, the most sponsored person was Gary Glitter. Imagine if your brand was associated with Gary Glitter these days. And I think the Olympics will also see this very thing come back and bite them on the arse. I think they're going to get in all kinds of problem about having McDonald's as a sponsor as soon as it comes out about the beef inclusion and how they're using this bleach to make their beef look great. I don't know if you've seen this. So essentially, they're from a bullock's head here in Australia, they get 47 patties. So, and to make that beef usable, what they do is they bleach it, and then they can make it. Then it gets put through. So that's about to hit the media in about a month's time, once the 4 corners have done their thing. So. You're going to find we're going to get bullock's head patties coming through. And that's going to be all about keeping the Olympics going and the tie to there. But in the NRM world, we've had a few different challenges. We've had in Tasmania, where they've got 400,000 people in the whole state, they had 3 NRMs, of which none of them were doing the same thing. So they've come together and offered the state as an NRM region. Now, I don't know how many of you work with many NRMs, but can you imagine having 3 NRM CEOs, hello there, together, all going, oh, this is a great idea. Yes, yes, we can see how this would work. Okay, who's delivering what? And now, okay, if I'm delivering the most, who's going to get the biggest amount of money for it? So that had its own challenges in Tasmania. Then we had, like I say, the pig cull with Winchester and Bell helicopters. But then I had Liverpool Planes phone me up and say, we're going to go under. We've had funding cut so much, we're losing staff, we're losing projects. All our hopes are pinned on koalas. What can we do? Just hands up if anyone in here knows of an organisation that would want to sponsor koalas.
Caramel koala?
Pardon?
Caramel koalas?
Cadbury's chocolate.
Chlamydia. You know, you've nailed it. That's exactly what we did. Cadbury's, Caramello, chlamydia. We went straight for, these are the people we go to simply because no one gets asked. So when you start thinking about fencing, who does the fencing here? Who does the steel fencing? Okay, so who would you go to for a fencing partner? Waratah. That's the one. Because Waratah will sponsor nearly, for each region, they allocate about $70,000 and very few regions ever ask for it. So let's go for a difficult one. Community engagement. Who wants to get hold of your community? Any ideas? Yes. A competitive bank. Well, we're going to come back to that one because the banking sector, Bendigo are very good. They do all kinds of different grants, they do all kinds, but it's all based from each branch with a committee coming together to work out where they do the grants. But let's think about corporate partnerships, people who will actually make money back. And I'm always a bit dubious because the banks can be tough to negotiate with. Because when you talk about brand exposure, we can't offer them anything because everyone knows who Westpac are. Everyone knows who CBA are. They're having their best years ever, but obviously warning us that that won't continue. But of course it has done for 20 years now. So then who else would want to get hold of the community? Yes, sir.
Fertiliser companies.
Fertiliser companies, very good. Anyone else?
Supermarkets.
Pardon? Supermarkets, I think they should, but they don't. Simply because they put us into the same category as the farming going to cause us a few issues in the newspapers. And then suddenly it's all about how much they pay farmers and so forth. So they put us in the no-go pile, unfortunately. Unless you're IGA. IGA would, but the big Coles and Woolies wouldn't. Phone companies, I'm often asked about phone companies, but with the phone companies, they're actually after the youth market. They only want school kids because adults already have phones, and anyone over the age of 30, when they buy a phone, you're never going to change. If you have an Apple now, you're pretty much going to stay with Apple. If you have an Android now, you're pretty much going to stay with Android. So it's wasting my time as an organisation to try to change you across, whereas the kids haven't made that decision yet. So what I can do for kids is I can put a white table in their library. And in that white table, I can stick a really huge internet pipe up the inside of it, connect all these new phones that aren't launched yet, and then the kids can come into the library and play with all these new phones that aren't launched. And then, because they pick it up and play with it, I can see what bits they play with. I can see which bits they don't. I can see which handset actually is the most desirable to the children. And now I don't need focus groups, I don't need marketing, I don't need R&D, I don't need any of this. I know it's this handset with these apps that I'm actually going to produce next because that's what the kids find exciting. That only cost me $50,000 to the school. I only need to do 10 schools in each state. And now I've just halved my R&D budget in one foul swoop. So that's what's happening with the phones. Who's doing anything on water monitoring? You went to put your hand up and dropped it because you knew I was going to pick on you. So, because of that, if you could stand up, please. And your name is?
Yasmin.
Yasmin. And where are you from, Yasmin?
From Lower Blackwood Catchment, Margaret.
Awesome. And what is it you're doing?
We're actually working with doing monitoring in the Hardy Inlet.
You're doing the
Water quality monitoring.
water quality monitoring.
The common water curriculum.
And who do you have sponsoring?
Swedish.
Awesome. These are they've got loads of money at the moment. And they're just waiting for you to contact them. So tell me about your water monitoring. How many sites, how many people are engaged doing it?
We're not directly doing the job.
Okay.
The common water, but we work with the land owners and get them involved in the project. So I'd say about 50 to 60.
Okay, and how many samples and tests do you do a year?
I think they do about 30 for.
And how many different river estuaries or streams are there?
So that would be 5 major sub-catchments, estuaries, but it's just one in Black River.
Awesome. So do you know how many litres go out into the ocean?
Through the open mouth?
Yes.
Actually, I think 60 million cubic meters, if I'm not mistaken. That was when it comes to water.
Okay, so who would want to sponsor Jasmine? Any ideas? Coca-Cola. Everyone wonders why it's Sorry, you can sit down and thank you so much. Coca-Cola, 50% of their business is water. You'll notice that Coca-Cola no longer put the Coke sign out anywhere apart from TV adverts, because they've already latched on to what Coke is. It's apparently happiness in the can. So now we know that they're lying bastards. What we can do is we can focus on their other 50% of their business, which is Mount Franklin, Never Fail, all these water companies. And think about it from their point of view. I can produce Coca-Cola for 2 to 4 cents a can. That's the price of the can is 3 cents. The content is 1 cent. That's the price. And now I can sell that out at $2. Or, amazingly, what I can do is now not use cans, I can use plastic, so I've halved the cost of my container, and I can fill it with stuff that cost me less than 1% of the actual Coca-Cola, and now I can charge 400% more. It's a great business model. I can sell water for, what, $5? Or I can produce something and sell, so really half my market and my profitability and sell it for less. So no, now Coca-Cola are pushing. Australia's the first country in the world to go 50-50. We're the first country in the world to actually go to a 50% split of water and Coca-Cola. And the way they're actually doing it is reminding people about sustainable water use, water quality, anything to do with water. To give you an idea, Sydney Convention Centre's being knocked down. And because it's being knocked down, it's beside Darling Harbour. Coca-Cola are going to float a convention centre into Darling Harbour, moor it off the side there, and it's one giant Mount Franklin water bottle shape. Yes, I didn't say Sydney had any class. So it's what we have to do is work out how they could help you. Now, the great thing there is at the moment, the public's opinion of Mount Franklin, the public's opinion of Never Fail isn't that bad, apart from transport issues. You can't really, truly accept Coca-Cola. At the moment, we're not getting too much issues with Mount Franklin, and we're not getting too many issues with Never Fail or anything like this. So on the water quality, I'd go to them first. Because following up from there, you're going to find very quickly PepsiCo will be coming out, and then you'll start finding some of the more not so nice ones coming through. So on your water monitoring, if you're looking for maybe $200,000 to $400,000 to actually fund the whole program, and you're willing to have new uniforms with Never Fail, and you're willing to have your newsletter changed into the Never Fail newsletter, and you're willing to have the people doing the testing wear the uniforms, you're willing to have the engagement sessions like this as the Never Fail engagement, they'll give you that 400,000. Because off the back of this, what they want to do is tell the planet how awesome they are for supporting water monitoring and in making sure that water sustainability is looked after in some of Australia's most remote areas. Aren't they wonderful company for doing such a thing? Buy their water. So this is what they do. What we have to do is keep in mind what they ask for. So we had a very interesting one for, it was, I shouldn't say, but not to worry. So we're in the Fitzroy Basin. Now, the Fitzroy Basin come to us and say, look, we've got the Great Barrier Reef. They got $200 million for that. It's not bad, is it? You know, what we're going to do is look after the reef. Here's 200 million. Oh, by the way, here's the EIS for dredging it. So they've got now, they're sponsored by Xstrata. Would you accept a sponsorship from the company that's going to dredge the Great Barrier Reef that you've been paid $200 million to secure? Now, they have a different view. They got Xstrata involved because Xstrata are going to be developing the port. So let me give you my biggest challenge from last year. I get called in, there's a snubfin, I've just been told, 10 minutes, very quickly. Snubfin dolphin. The only dolphin in the world that's native to Australia. It's got a opposable head. It's the ugliest dolphin in the world. It looks like it's been deformed. So they showed me, I mean, to give you an idea, they showed me this dolphin. I saw it, and I actually thought they'd photoshopped it. So they haven't, it turns out. There's 90 of them alive in this estuary, and it's right beside Curtis Island, which is on the central coast of Queensland, right beside Gladstone Harbour, where they're developing this port. Now, there's 90 of them. Xstrata want to put a deep sea terminal there so that they can get the coal and gas out to the Panamax ships. So all they have to do is dredge this one area so that it's deep enough for these ships to get through, but that's where all the seagrass is that these dolphins require. So they did an EIS that showed the points, the points where these dolphins are. So all 90 will be dead in 2 days. It's that simple. Like, once they've dredged, they're dead. So they've come to me and gone, what can we do? So I've gone to Xstrata and said, okay, 90 are going to die, what are you going to do about it? And no one had asked them. I said, well, what do you want us to do about it? Well, don't do it. No, we're going to do this. We've got our license. Here's the letter from federal. Here's the letter from state. We're doing it. Okay, so what do you want us to do about it? Okay, so what I want you to do is, because if we move them off longitude or latitude, if we move them from the GPS, they die. They can only exist in this area. So I want, on the land, I want you to put another SeaWorld. It's going to cost you $2.5 billion. I want another SeaWorld. I want the biggest tanks in the Southern Hemisphere. I want all 90 caught without distress, pull into these tanks. I want a breed and release program set up, and I want you to build it, fund it, and guarantee that funding for the next 40 years. Okay. So now I think I'm a hero. I phoned my wife already and gone, you will not believe what I've done today. Get ready, I need to write case studies, I want to do this. And I've got all excited, and I've gone to the CEO of the Fitzroy and gone, okay, I've got a solution. She's then gone out to the community, and they've all gone, no. Because they decided that they would challenge this. So now what do we do? Because we've got a militant arm within the board, and we've got a militant arm within the community that's a minority, when we've got an offer that is going to be probably the only compromise we're going to get. Do you know what happened? They dredged it, all 90 died. So, what we have to do is keep in mind when we're faced with something like this, we have to compromise. And that compromise often comes with really tough decisions to make. The sponsors are often willing to make those tough decisions. It's whether we are. Now, I don't want to end on that note because, you know, that was the worst thing I've had in sponsorship for many, many, many years. Most of the time, it's very straightforward. Anyone in this room who can't win $50,000 annual partner by the end of this afternoon, come and see me. I will send you a copy of the template. I will send you a copy of other people's, and I will give you a list of the people to contact. What I want you to leave today is knowing how valuable you are, how sexy you are to corporates, but I want you to choose the right corporates. And that's what we're going to go through this afternoon. Is there any questions? I've got just a couple of minutes. Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Julian. Are you excited about this AVO? Yeah, I am. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. Now, you mentioned Viagra several times, actually. I wonder why you're a young man. I'm not sure why you should be so obsessed with Viagra at this stage of your life, Julian. But did you know that Viagra is actually made in Ireland? It's true. It's made in County Cork by Pfizer, where it's known locally as the Pfizer Riser. And the other story I have about that concerned a Catholic priest. Piers, you might have heard me tell this one before. He was preparing a First Communion class in the local school, you see, so he was going to make sure they knew all the stuff that they needed to know. And he said, now I need to know what you know about the resurrection. He said, what do you know about the resurrection? And little Johnny put his hand up and he says, Father, I understand that if you have a resurrection for more than 4 hours, you should see a doctor. And so you should. Take that as a bit of advice from me. Right, lunch is next, ladies and gentlemen. It's in Spinnaker's restaurant, which is where? That away? Around about over there somewhere. And we're back here at 1 o'clock sharp for our workshop with Julian this afternoon, where we are going to kick some serious butt in terms of finding out who's got it, who wants it, and how we're going to get it. All right? Are you pumped? All right, go to lunch. You're hungry.